You're listening to Indepth SEO. In-depth conversations on how search, content, and AI really work.
Welcome to SEO Deep Dive by Indepth SEO. I'm Mark.
And I'm Sarah.
Today, we are opening a file that, to be honest, feels less like a marketing tactic and more like a crisis management handbook for the modern internet.
That's a good way to put it.
We are tackling topical authority and content moats.
Which is a very polite way of asking the terrifying question, how do you stop your brand from disappearing when the traffic simply stops coming?
That is the question on the table. We have a massive stack of sources today. Articles, technical breakdowns, case studies from giants like NerdWallet, and niche players like Living Cozy.
And they all point to a shift that is making a lot of people very, very uncomfortable.
We're going to talk about how brands become the, quote, default answer.
Right. And to set the stage, I want to pull a number from the source material that actually made me stop and reread it to make sure I wasn't seeing things.
Okay, let's hear it.
There are recent studies showing that with the rise of AI search, we're talking ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google's AI overviews, some publishers have seen organic traffic drop anywhere from 15% to 60%.
60%.
60.
That is not a dip. That isn't a correction. That is a collapse. That is an extinction event for a certain type of business model.
It absolutely is. And the sources argue that this isn't just a weather pattern that is going to pass. You can't just wait this out. It's a structural shift in the architecture of the web.
We are moving from the era of 10 blue links, which is what the entire SEO industry was built on for, the last 25 years?
Pretty much.
The classic Google it, click the link, read the page loop.
Exactly. We're moving from that to the era of answer engines, or AEO.
AEO. Answer Engine Optimization. I feel like every year we get a new acronym that threatens to ruin our weekends.
It feels that way sometimes.
But this one feels different because the goalposts have moved completely. It's not just about tweaking meta tags anymore.
No, it's not. In the old model, the goal was the click. You optimized everything, your headlines, your meta descriptions, your site speed, to get the user to leave Google and come to you.
That was the entire game.
AEO changes the incentive structure. Fundamentally. It's no longer about generating a visit. It's about generating influence.
Let's break that down, because influence sounds soft. It sounds like branding fluff.
It's not fluff. It's math. It really is. If a user asks an AI, what is the best CRM for a small plumbing business, and the AI gives a direct, synthesized answer, the battle isn't for the traffic anymore.
The user isn't clicking anything.
Not a thing. The battle is to be the brand the AI cites in that answer.
So effectively, if the AI is the new gatekeeper, we need to figure out how to get the password.
That's a great way of looking at it.
Which brings us to the core concept of this deep dive. Topical authority. The sources call it an invisible moat. But I want to push back on this immediately. Is this just a rebrand of content marketing? Because people have been saying content is king since 1999.
That's a fair skepticism. I think a lot of marketing terms get recycled, But the distinction here is technical, not just philosophical. Content is king usually meant blog a lot.
Right, just publish volume. More is better.
Exactly. Topical authority is about semantic connectivity. It's the difference between being a source Google indexes versus a source Google understands.
Okay, that's a big statement.
Mm-hmm.
Google indexes billions of pages. You're saying it doesn't understand most of them.
It understands what words are on the page, sure. But topical authority is about whether Google understands that you are the entity that should be trusted with the answer. It's about probability.
Probability.
And if we are moving into a world where the AI summarizes the web, the mission today is to figure out how to be the thing it summarizes.
Precisely. We need to unpack how to build an ecosystem so deep and so structured that you become undeniable. Because if you aren't the authority in this new layout, you are effectively invisible.
And to understand the solution, we first have to map the landscape. We need to define exactly what we mean by topical authority, and importantly, how it differs from the old metrics we used to obsess over.
Let's get into the mechanics then. Section 1. Defining the landscape. We need to define topical authority, but I want to contrast it with something we all know. Domain authority, or DA.
Oh yeah, because for the last decade, DA was the scoreboard. If you had a high DA, you won.
It was the big stick diplomacy of SEO. If you were the New York Times or Forbes, you had a DA of 90 plus. You could write a frankly terrible article about best running shoes, and it would rank #1 simply because your domain was powerful.
It was weight class. You were the heavyweight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the algorithm has matured. It has moved from simple keyword matching and backlink counting to semantic association.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
The sources use this library analogy that I think is really helpful to visualize this.
I love a good analogy. Lay it on me.
Imagine a general public library. It has books on everything: cooking, history, sci-fi, auto repair, gardening. It's fantastic for browsing.
Sure, I can find a little bit of everything.
Right. But if you have a very specific, complex medical question, say you're researching a rare immunological disorder and you go to that public library, what do you find?
Maybe one outdated textbook from 1995. Or a Health for Dummies book. Something very surface level. Right. You aren't trusting your health to that. You go to a specialized medical library. That library has topical authority on medicine. It covers every sub-niche, every related condition, every new study. It has depth.
That's all it does.
It's all it does. And Google's goal, and by extension, the AI's goal, is to emulate that specialized library. They want to send the user to the place where the probability of a correct, comprehensive answer is highest.
So topical authority is essentially a probability signal. The AI looks at the general library and says, there's a 40% chance this answer is good.
Right.
It looks at the medical library and says, there's a 99% chance this answer is good.
Yes, it's a measure of depth, breadth, and interconnectedness on a specific subject. And here is where the David versus Goliath dynamic comes in, which I love. Because for a long time, small brands felt like they couldn't compete with the giants.
The Amazon problem.
Yep.
Everything I search for, Amazon is on page 1.
The Amazon problem, exactly. But a site with high topical authority, even with a lower domain authority, can actually beat a giant. The sources highlight the photography niche to prove this.
Okay.
You have a site called lowpro.com. Now, their domain rating is fine. It's around DR62. It's respectable, but they aren't a titan.
They aren't the New York Times.
They aren't. Then you have Amazon, DR95, the Goliath of the internet. Amazon essentially ranks for everything.
Usually. If I search for blender, socks, or TVs, Amazon is there.
But if you search for a diesel or camera bag, Lowpro can outrank Amazon.
Now, why? Amazon definitely sells more camera bags. They probably have more pages about camera bags if you count every single product listing.
Because Amazon sells everything from diapers to drones, their authority is a mile wide and an inch deep on any given topic, a general store.
A general store.
Yeah.
Lowpro has a content footprint entirely dedicated to camera protection. They talk about the phone density, the weatherproofing, the specific fit for a Canon versus a Nikon,
Right.
travel safety for photographers.
It's real nitty-gritty details.
The details an expert would care about. So Google looks at Lowpro and sees a subject matter expert. It looks at Amazon and sees a general store. For specific high-intent queries, the expert wins. That is a massive insight. You don't have to be bigger. You just have to be smarter about your specific lane.
That's the whole game.
But there's a trap here, isn't there? Because big companies try to act like experts in everything. They see a keyword with high volume, and they just go for it.
And that is where they fail. We have a fascinating and, frankly, terrifying case study involving HubSpot.
Now, I think of HubSpot as the gold standard for inbound marketing. They literally invented the term inbound marketing. They are the kings of content.
They are. I mean, their blog is legendary. But even giants can stumble. There was a case where HubSpot saw a traffic drop of nearly 85.7% in certain segments.
85%. That is brutal. That is heads rolling in the marketing department.
It is. The reason, according to the analysis, was that they tried to effectively abuse their domain authority. They had this massive DR, so they looked at the keyword data and said, hey, lots of people search for high-volume topic unrelated to CRM. Let's write about that.
They got greedy.
They got greedy. They went too wide. They diluted their core signal. They tried to become the general library instead of staying the specialized business library.
And Google's algorithm effectively said, stick to your lane.
We don't trust you on this topic. It's a penalty, not a manual one, but an algorithmic one for straying too far from your expertise.
Wow. There's another example in the sources from the founder of Marketer Milk. He noticed this dynamic when he was working at Webflow.
Right. Webflow is the web design tool, a competitor to WordPress.
So he noticed a pattern. Whenever they published content about web design, things like CSS, HTML, layouts, responsive design,
Their core business.
he said they ranked instantly, top 3 within days. Google knew them as an authority on design. But when they tried to publish general marketing content,
Which is adjacent. It's not like they were writing about cat food. Web designers need to know marketing.
it's totally adjacent. But it
Yeah.
wasn't their authority.
And those posts struggled. Even though the website had massive power, that power wasn't transferable to a new topic without doing the work to build that new topical footprint from the ground up.
That is a critical mental shift. I think a lot of people think, I have a strong website, I can launch a new vertical tomorrow. But you're saying authority is rented per topic, not owned by the domain.
Authority is rented, not owned. That is the perfect way to put it. You have to pay the rent on every single topic you want to rank for with deep, interconnected content.
Okay, so we've defined the landscape. We know that deep expertise beats broad dabbling. But why is this urgency happening now? Why is everyone talking about this in 2026?
That brings us back to the rise of AEO answer engine optimization.
Right, context check. It is 2026. The search landscape is cluttered. We have Google's AI overviews pushing down organic results. We have Perplexity acting as a research assistant. We have ChatGPT being used as a search engine.
The user behavior has fundamentally changed. We are in the zero-click reality.
I hate that phrase.
We all do. But it's where we are. AEO targets scenarios where users don't click a link at all. So the value shifts from traffic, which implies movement to your site, to share of answer, or SOA.
Share of answer. I like that. It sounds a lot like share of voice in traditional marketing.
It is similar, but much more specific, and I would argue more measurable. Share of answer is the percentage of relevant, high-intent queries where your brand is cited in the AI-generated response.
So let's play this out. If I ask ChatGPT, what is the best project management software for a creative agency? And it mentions Asana, Monday, and Trello.
Then those three brands just won the share of answer for that query. Even if you don't click, the brand recall is massive.
It's endorsement.
It's an institutional endorsement. The AI has presented you as the default expert.
The computer said this is the best, so it must be true.
Exactly. And if you aren't on that list, you don't exist. You aren't in the consideration set. And the sources mention that sites with strong topical authority appear in these AI overviews way more often.
How much more?
About 3 times more frequently than those with weak authority.
3 times? That's not a small margin.
No, it's the difference between being visible and being invisible.
So why is that? Is the AI just counting keywords or something?
No, it comes down to 2 key concepts for the AI: trust and hallucinations.
Hallucination. That's when the AI just makes stuff up, right? Like when
Yeah.
it cites a court case that never happened.
Exactly. And AI developers are terrified of hallucinations. It completely destroys trust in their product. So they program their models to prioritize trust above all else. They need sources that are consistent, comprehensive, and factually dense.
So topical authority is basically a trust signal for the robot.
Precisely. An AI model views a site with a comprehensive library of interconnected content as a safe, reliable source to synthesize an answer from. If you have the pillar pages, the clusters, the internal links, the data, the AI feels safe citing you. It dramatically lowers the probability of a hallucination.
Okay, I'm sold on the concept. I don't want to be invisible. I want to be the safety blanket for the AI. Now comes the hard part.
The really hard part.
How do we actually build it? The sources outline a pretty specific architecture.
They do. It's not about just writing blog posts randomly and hoping for the best. It's about structure. The core model here is the topic cluster.
I've heard of this. This is the hub and spoke model.
Yes, but let's really visualize it because the visualization matters. Imagine a bicycle wheel. At the center, you have this is your pillar page.
Give me an example of a pillar page topic.
Let's stick with project management. Your pillar page is a massive high-level guide to everything you need to know about project management.
The 101 course.
The 101 course, exactly. It touches on methodologies, software, hiring, timelines, budgeting. But, and this is key, it doesn't go super deep into the weeds on any one of those.
It's the syllabus for the entire course.
It's the syllabus. I love that. Then you have the spokes of the wheel. These are your cluster content pages. These are hyper-detailed subpages covering specific questions.
So not just project management, but time tracking for remote teams.
Yes. Or waterfall versus agile methodologies. Or how to handle scope creep in a software project. Each one is a deep dive on a single, narrow concept.
And the magic is in the linking. That's what connects it all together.
The linking is the glue. It's what tells the crawler that these pages are related. You link every spoke back to the hub, and the hub links out to the spokes. This creates a web of information. The sources describe it as a family tree visualization. The pillar page is the parent, and the cluster posts are the children.
And this isn't just for human organization, right? This connects to how Google actually understands the world.
It connects directly to semantic SEO and the knowledge graph.
In the knowledge graph. That sounds ominous, but I know it's just Google's massive database of facts.
Right. It's how Google understands entities. An entity is a person, a place, a concept. Search engines need to distinguish between Apple, the brand, and Apple, the fruit. They do this through context.
So if I'm writing about Apple, the food, I need to talk about pie, orchards, and vitamins.
Exactly. And if you're writing about Apple, the company, you need to mention Steve Jobs, iPhones, and Cupertino. The surrounding words provide the semantic context.
And if you don't do that,
then Google gets confused. If you are writing about nutrition, you must also cover metabolism, vitamins, and diet plans. If you miss those related entities, Google's knowledge graph assumes your coverage is incomplete. It thinks, this site claims to know about nutrition, but it never mentions metabolism. That's suspicious.
So it's about completing the puzzle, showing Google you understand the entire universe of a topic, not just one keyword.
Yes, exactly.
The sources provided a really solid 7-step framework for building this. I think we should run through this, but I want to stop on a few of them because they are trickier than they look.
Let's do it.
Step 1 is define core topic domain.
This is where most people fail immediately. It's the most important step. They pick a lane that is way too wide. They say, I want to be an authority on health.
You can't be an authority on health. It's too big. You're competing with the Mayo Clinic and WebMD and the CDC. You'll lose.
Exactly. You need to niche down until it hurts. Don't pick health. Pick B2B mental health for remote workers in the tech industry. Get that specific.
Dominate a small pond before you even think about swimming in the ocean.
That's the only way to start.
Okay, step 2. Uncover topic universe.
This means mapping every subtopic and user question. You aren't just looking for keywords yet. You are looking for concepts. What does the user need to know to solve their problem? What are their fears? What are the common misconceptions? You're building the curriculum.
Step 3. Group keywords.
And the sources are specific here. Use SRP-based clustering. Don't guess.
Explain that. What is SRP-based clustering?
So say you have 2 keywords, best running shoes and top-rated sneakers for running. As a human, you think, those are the same thing, I'll make one page.
Seems reasonable.
But are they? You have to check Google. Search for both terms. If Google shows the exact same top 10 results for both searches, then yes, it's one page. Google sees the intent as identical.
And if the results are different?
If the results are different, even slightly, then Google sees them as different intents. You need 2 pages. You have to let Google's results page tell you how to group your content.
Don't fight the algorithm. Let it guide you.
Don't fight it.
Step 4. Architect topic hubs.
That's drawing the map, creating the cluster of clusters, organizing the hierarchy so the crawler can traverse it easily and understand the relationships you've built.
Then step 5. Content gap analysis.
This is pretty straightforward. Look at your competitors who are already winning. What are they covering that you aren't? If your top 3 competitors all have a page on time tracking and you don't, that is a massive hole in your authority. You have to plug it.
Step 6. Information gain. I want to double-click on this one because this feels like the antidote to generic AI content.
It is critical. Information gain is actually a Google patent. It basically asks, does this new document add anything new to the index?
Because if I just read the top 10 results, summarize them, and hit publish,
you have 0 information gain. You are what we call consensus content, and AI eats consensus content for breakfast. If the AI can summarize the top 10 results itself, it doesn't need you. You are redundant.
So you have to add new value, new data, a new perspective, a unique case study, your own experience.
You have to be additive. Being better written is not enough anymore. You have to be different in a valuable way.
And finally, step 7, strategic internal linking, connecting all the dots.
Showing the crawler the relationship between the pages, passing authority from your strong pages to your new ones. It's the wiring that makes the whole machine work.
One thing the sources mentioned in this section that I found really interesting was the internal dimensions of authority, specifically velocity.
Yes, velocity matters. It's the speed of publishing. It's a signal of commitment.
Tell me about the video conference software company.
Right. So this company was publishing maybe 1 blog post a month.
Yeah.
Check in the box. And they were getting no results. Total crickets. Then they decided to go all in on a specific topic cluster. They publish 50 pieces of semantically connected content in 3 months.
50. In 1 quarter. That's a huge lift.
A massive lift. They were flooding the zone, and suddenly traffic spiked. They signaled to Google, we are active, we are deeply committed to this topic, and we are doing it right now. That freshness and velocity signal was huge for them.
So you can't just write one post a month and hope to build authority over 5 years. The game is too fast now.
Not in 2026. The competition is too fast. You have to show up in force.
Okay, so we are building this massive library. It's organized, it's deep. But here's the elephant in the room. AI is really good at writing content. If I can build a library, a competitor with a better LLM script can build a bigger library faster.
That's the fear.
How do we protect it? We talked about the moat. Section 4 in our sources covers protecting against AI clones.
This is the defense strategy, and you're right, the threat is the consensus trap. As we said, AI generates consensus content average answers based on existing data. If your content is generic, you are just feeding the consensus. You are easily replaceable.
So how do we build a moat that keeps the clones out? What makes content clone-proof?
You need elements that the AI cannot generate. The first and most powerful is proprietary data.
Data that only you have.
Exactly. First-party data. Surveys you ran with your audience, internal analytics from your product, unique case studies with real numbers. AI cannot hallucinate your private data. Well, it shouldn't. If you publish a study saying 60% of our users prefer feature X based on our internal data, the AI has to cite you to report that fact.
It can't generate that on its own. It becomes a primary source.
It becomes a primary source. Original research is more valuable now than it has ever been. If you are a company sitting on a mountain of data, publish it. It is your strongest defense.
Okay, that's huge. What's the second element?
The second is experience. This is the extra E in Google's EEAT guidelines.
Right. It used to be expertise, authoritativeness, trustworthiness. Now it's EEAT.
And Google added experience specifically to combat generic, lifeless AI content. Content must demonstrate firsthand usage of a product or experience with a service.
What's the difference between expertise and experience? They sound similar.
Expertise is, I know the technical specs of this camera. It has a 24-megapixel sensor and an f1.8 lens.
Book smarts.
Book smarts. Experience is, I used this camera in a rainstorm in Seattle, and the grip got slippery after about an hour. Or, the menu system is frustrating when you're trying to change settings quickly at a wedding.
One is the manual, one is the real world. Street smarts.
Correct. AI has book smarts. It has read every manual and every review. But AI has never held a camera. It has never hiked a mountain with a backpack. It has never tasted the recipe you're writing about. That human nuance, the sensory details, the frustration, the specific narrative is a powerful signal of legitimacy.
So don't just list the best cameras. Tell me how the button placement feels when you are wearing gloves in the cold.
Exactly. Be aggressively human in your content.
And what about the people writing the content? The sources mention subject matter experts or SMEs being critical.
Authorship is crucial. You need real authors with verifiable digital footprints. Google uses schema markup to connect an author on your site to their LinkedIn profile, their Twitter, their other published work.
So no more admin as the author name on the blog post.
Definitely not. If your content is written by marketing team, you are missing a massive trust signal. Google wants to see the real, credible human is behind the information.
And it's not just the author byline, right? It's about bringing in outside voices, too.
For sure. Interview other experts. A dentist citing American Dental Association recommendations carries immense weight. A general blogger guessing about teeth does not. Those expert quotes are another form of proprietary content.
The sources also mentioned opinion and contrarian views. This one feels a bit risky.
It can be. This works best for non-YMYL topics.
Oh, YMYL.
Your money, your life. So, medical, financial, legal advice. Do not be contrarian about heart surgery.
Right. Why heart attacks are actually good for you. Probably not a winning SEO strategy.
Google will bury you, and rightfully so. But for marketing, or tech, or design, or hobbies, being the black sheep can be incredibly powerful.
How so?
If everyone in your industry says do X, and you have a well-reasoned, data-backed argument for actually you should do Y, that is pure information gain. It breaks the consensus. It forces the search engine to look at you as a unique, valuable entity. It creates debate.
I love that. Be the black sheep as long as you can back it up with evidence.
As long as you can back it up. Don't just be contrarian for clicks. Be contrarian because you found a better way.
So we've built the library, we've dug the moat with data and experience. But how do we know if it's working? Section 5 is about measuring the unmeasurable. Because there is no topical authority score in Google Analytics, is there?
No, unfortunately. Google doesn't give us a report card that says you have 85% authority on project management. It's a concept, not a single metric. But there are proxies we can watch that tell us if we're moving in the right direction.
One of the key ones mentioned is traffic share by domain.
Right. You can use tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush. You define a bucket of keywords for your core topic, and you track what percentage of the total traffic for that bucket you own versus your competitors. If your slice of the pie is growing month over month, your authority is very likely rising.
That's a great competitive metric. And there's this formula, the topical authority ratio. I found this simple, but really smart.
It's a great internal benchmark. The formula is simply the number of pages on a specific topic divided by the total number of pages on your site.
So if I have 100 pages total, and 15 of them are about keyword research, my ratio for that topic is 15%.
Correct. And if you want to increase your authority on keyword research, you need to increase that ratio. You can't credibly claim to be an authority on a topic if only 1% of your entire website talks about it. It just doesn't make sense to the algorithm.
It's about density and focus. What about the snowball effect?
This is one of the most satisfying indicators when you start to see it. A site that's successfully building authority will start to rank for keywords they didn't even explicitly target.
The happy accidents.
It's not an accident, it's semantic trust. Google thinks this site knows so much about coffee, they are probably the right answer for espresso grinder maintenance for a Rancilio machine, even if you haven't optimized perfectly for it. You see rankings for hundreds of related long-tail terms just appearing in your Search Console reports.
That's when you know it's really working. And speed is another factor, right? Indexing speed.
Yes, this is a huge one. High-authority sites get new content indexed and ranked almost immediately, sometimes within hours or even minutes of publishing.
Whereas a low-authority site might publish a post and wait weeks for it to even show up in the index.
Exactly. If Google trusts you, it prioritizes crawling and indexing your new content because it assumes it will be good and valuable to users. It's like having a VIP pass at the club. You don't wait in line.
There was a case study in the sources about a company called Sealed, a climate tech company.
Yes, this was a great example of a smaller player using this strategy to compete with a giant. They focused on 3 core topics: heat pumps, insulation, and sealing. They analyzed their percentage of traffic ownership against a massive competitor like Bob Vila.
Bob Vila is a huge DIY site, massive domain authority.
Huge, a Goliath. But Sealed could win on the specific technical details of heat pumps because they focused their ratio there. They could see where their window of opportunity was, the subtopics where their depth could beat Bob Vila's breadth. It allowed them to be strategic and pick their battles.
It really proves that you can measure this if you're creative. You don't need Google to give you a score.
And there are also audit tools emerging that attempt to calculate a 0 to 100 score based on things like cluster coverage, market dominance, and cannibalization health. So the industry is trying hard to quantify it.
Let's get into the real world then. Section 6, real world scenarios. We've touched on a few, but I want to dive deeper into these stories because they really bring it home.
Let's start with the auto parts company example. This is a classic one.
So usually an auto parts site just lists the parts. It's a catalog. Here's a spark plug. It costs $10. Buy it.
Right. It's purely transactional. But to build authority, this company shifted their entire strategy. They started publishing repair guides, troubleshooting tips, maintenance schedules for specific car models.
How to change a spark plug on a 2015 Honda Civic.
Oh.
Why is my engine making that strange clicking noise?
Exactly. By doing that, they became the default answer for car repair, not just a store. Google sees them as an informational resource first, not just a transactional one. And that drives massive high-intent traffic, which eventually converts to sales.
Then there is NerdWallet. I feel like they're the gold standard for this entire concept.
They are the prototype. Jacob Clark from NerdWallet has a great philosophy on this. He defines authority as covering a topic with enough depth that there is nowhere else for the user to go. You become the go-to.
It's true. They don't just cover credit cards. They cover credit cards for students with bad credit traveling to Europe for the first time.
They cover every possible permutation. It feels like they have an article for every single question you could possibly have about money.
It's overwhelming.
That is a strategy. They dominate finance by suffocating the topic with completeness. There is no air left for anyone else to breathe.
What about Living Cozy? That was a fascinating stat.
Living Cozy. They rank for 8,200 keywords containing the word sofa across 73 pages.
73 pages just about sofas. What can you even write about?
Just about sofas. They didn't just write 5 best of articles. They tackled every keyword related to sofas. Sectionals, fabrics, sofas for small spaces, pet-friendly sofas, velvet versus linen, how to clean them, how to measure your door to see if it fits. They won the category by simply outworking everyone on coverage.
That is true dedication. But it's not always easy, even for big brands. We mentioned Hotjar earlier.
Hotjar is such an interesting cautionary tale about the non-transferability of authority. They are a massive brand in the UX, or user experience, space. They own keywords related to heat maps, session recordings,
Top of their field.
but they wanted to expand their audience and start targeting product managers.
Seems related. A PM cares about user experience.
It is related, but it's a distinct enough audience and topic that Google didn't give them a free pass. When they moved from targeting UX designers to product managers, it took weeks for the new content to rank. Even with their high domain authority, they had to earn topical authority in that new niche completely from scratch.
That really hammers home the point that you can't rest on your laurels. You have to earn it every single time you step into a new room.
Absolutely. Authority is rented, not owned. You have to pay the rent every day with relevant, high-quality content.
So we are ready to execute. Section 7. Execution strategy. What are the do's and don'ts? What are the big mistakes we need to avoid?
One of the biggest and most common mistakes is keyword cannibalization.
Eating your own lunch.
Exactly. This is when you write multiple pages that compete for the same term. If you have 3 different blog posts all trying to rank for best running shoes, you're splitting your authority. Google doesn't know which one is the definitive page, so it often ranks none of them highly. You need to consolidate that into one ultimate guide.
Another mistake is thin content.
This is the programmatic SEO trap that a lot of people fall into with AI. They think they can publish 100 shallow, 500-word articles just to have pages on their site.
Quality over quantity.
Always. 10 deep, well-researched pillar pages are worth infinitely more than 100 shallow spam pages. A library filled with pamphlets isn't a library, it's a junk drawer. Google sees it the same way.
What about ignoring intent?
This is crucial. You have to understand why the user is searching. If a user wants to buy something, don't give them a 5,000-word history of the product. If they want to learn and compare, don't just shove a product page in their face. You have to match the content type to the intent of the searcher.
And finally, a big one, stopping too early.
This is the patience game, and it's where most strategies fail. It takes 6 to 12 months to see the compound growth. It's a snowball. It starts slow. You might not see anything for months, and then suddenly, everything starts to lift at once.
And brands quit at month 4.
So many brands quit at month 4, right before the breakthrough. You have to have the conviction to stick with it.
That's tragic. Now, what about maintaining this authority once you've built it? The sources talk about the update strategy.
Yeah, content decays. Old content is like moldy bread.
Gross, but accurate.
Freshness is a ranking factor. You cannot just publish and forget. You need a process. One of the best tactics is to go into your Google Search Console, find pages with high impressions but low clicks.
Which means people are seeing it in the results, but it's not relevant or compelling enough to click on.
Exactly. That's your priority list. Go into those pages and upgrade them. Add new stats, new insights, update the year in the title, add a new section. Keep your content alive.
Treat your content like a living garden. You have to weed it and water it.
That's the perfect analogy for it.
Is there ever a time when you shouldn't pursue topical authority? When it's not the right play?
Yes. It's not for everyone. If a topic is extremely niche with very low competition, you might not need to build a massive 50-page cluster. One good page might win. Or, more importantly, if SEO isn't a primary revenue driver for your business model, say you are a purely sales-led outbound company, then the massive resource investment in time and money might not be worth it. It is a strategic choice, not a mandatory requirement for every single business on Earth.
That's a fair point. It's a heavy lift. It's expensive.
It is a very heavy lift.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. We've defined the landscape. We've built the architecture, dug the moat with data and experience, and looked at the case studies. Let's wrap this up.
The summary is pretty clear, I think. Topical authority is the long game. It is about moving from chasing keywords to owning topics.
It's not about tricking the algorithm anymore. It's about proving you are the best, most comprehensive answer.
And looking to the future, as AI continues to evolve and become more integrated into search, that share of answer metric we talked about will become the most critical metric for brand survival. If the AI doesn't know you, your customers won't either.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to take away from this deep dive.
Here is the question I want you to sit with. If search traffic went to zero tomorrow, if Google completely stopped sending clicks because everyone got their answers directly from AI, would your brand still be the one the AI is quoting?
That is a scary thought. Because for most businesses, the answer is probably no.
It is. But if the answer is no, you don't just have an SEO problem, you have an authority problem. You want the default. And in the age of AI, being the default is the only safety there is.
Powerful stuff. Thanks for listening to this deep dive into topical authority.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to In-Depth SEO. If this episode added a new perspective, visit indepthseo.com for more thoughtful conversations on how search really works.